Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is behind the steel curtain editor Dave Schofield coming at you again. It's Tuesday night. It's slightly later than we go at 9 o'clock. It's about 10 after 9, but I had the option of getting here on time and maybe running out of gas and have us not starting at all, or stopping to make the safe call before I made it home. My brother says I made the wrong call, but with me as always is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going?
I am one who believes in challenging the light when it comes on.
I am too. I do it, and I haven't run out of gas since college. I did it twice in college, but I push it till the gas light comes on. It's what I do. And actually, I needed to get gas 3 trips ago, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to push it. Nope, I'm going to push it. Nope, I'm going to push it. And on the way home, I'm like, all I needed, I'm like, I knew I could get home. The question was, could I get back to the gas station for the next time? So,
you know, my wife gives me a very bad time because I constantly, push the limits of the gas.
So does mine. So does mine.
However, I can state that I have never run out of gas.
There you go. The 2 times I ran out of gas, one time it was on the interstate. It was not good. The other time was actually pulling into the gas station. It had a little bit of a hill. So all I had to do was open up the door and give it a little push. And the people that were with me helped push a little bit. And no joke, I was 25 feet from the gas pump when I ran out of gas. So that one wasn't so bad. So that's part of our fun family time, sharing those stories. Yeah. The other time I thought I had got gas and I didn't. I didn't even look at my gauge. It was not good. It was not good. But hey, let's talk some Steelers. You doing good? Is it a hot day for you? Pretty hot?
Yeah, it was pretty toasty.
It is so humid here. It is ridiculous.
That's the biggest thing, because I'm sure you're plenty hotter than we are. We were probably 84, 85 today.
Oh, we were in the 90s.
The humidity was rough. And, of course, I had some stuff to do outside this evening. I was drenched. I was like, oh, this is just like sticky.
Do you, during the day at this time of year, think about, wonder how the Steelers are doing with OTAs? They outside or do they go inside because it's too hot? They were outside. You ever think about it, or do you just no? I do, but then again, I have to be ready to follow all this stuff. But no, they were outside. We have a little bit of news today.
Come on, you've been like me. You've had jobs where it required you to be outside and work, and you didn't really even think about it. You just did it.
You just did it.
Like you probably don't remember you probably remember the time because you would have been in high school when I was in college, and we were painting on the roof of Southern Middle School. I was painting up there that summer, and it was like 105 degrees outside, and we were supposed to go 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off stints up there just because. And the biggest reason to stop was to hydrate.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that awful to work as long as you stay hydrated. So.
Well, but when the humidity factor comes in and you're painting, man, then your paint doesn't even dry. But anyway, let's get on. We got some news to talk about.
We ended up having to go back and repaint everything that we had painted that week.
Yeah, because
it was terrible.
Oops, not good. But there was a new sheriff in town. There was a new Steeler there.
Yes, there
for
was.
week 2 of OTAs. In case you all didn't catch it, number 18 out there catching passes, running jet sweeps, and all that good stuff out there with the Steelers. The 2 big names of who weren't there in week 1 was Deontay Johnson, who was then there for week 2, and Stephon Tuitt. Did you think either was going to show in week 2?
Didn't know.
Yeah. Would you have rather switched who it was?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
Nope.
Yeah. See, I still
do I wish everybody was there? Sure, I wish everybody was there. But again, it's voluntary OTAs. So my guess is Deontay wasn't there because he had something else last week.
Yeah.
And then was there this week
and
was back and looked to be business as usual for him.
And it's interesting because sometimes if players have something, if they just say they have something, then people are like, oh, okay. But we just want to know, and the fans feel like they have to know. And honestly, for people that were really angry and felt that Stephon Tuitt owes it to the fans to say what's going on.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't. He really doesn't. And there are people out there that really feel that he does. And honestly, he doesn't. He owes it to the Steelers. And the Steelers and Stephon Tuitt, they have to decide how much the fans get to know. And who knows? Maybe we'll be finding out more here in the next couple of weeks when it's mandatory minicamp. But right now, like Coach Tomlin says, he doesn't talk about who's not here.
Hold on. The
about who
question
is
can
here.
come down, does he really owe it even to the Steelers for voluntary minicamp?
No, but I mean,
APA?
but he does.
Because here's why, okay? When I take a day off, I get with my supervisor and I say, hey, I'm taking a day off Friday if you don't have a problem with it. He's like, okay, fine.
You don't have to say you're going fishing.
He doesn't have to know what I'm doing. Right.
He doesn't. No. Say the truth. He doesn't have to know that you're going fishing.
He doesn't have to.
Because if you take a day off, that's what you're doing. Come on.
He doesn't have to know that I'm going. No. Depends on time of year. He
knows
what I'm doing
true.
Based on time of year I take off.
Yeah. Sometimes it's ice fishing.
Or hunting.
There you go.
Yes.
So but you are correct. You are correct, but I'm then going to clarify what I meant a little bit. You are correct that it doesn't have to be an explanation about where he was with OTAs, but he does owe them an explanation about his intentions for the season.
Correct.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. And I've thought this for a while, and I'm finally going to say it. And I really hope that it has nothing to do with it. But it might. It's still in the back of my head when it comes to Stephon Tuitt. Is tomorrow. What's tomorrow? What is the date tomorrow?
Tomorrow is only a day away.
Yeah, I know. But what's the date tomorrow? It's a key date in the NFL calendar. It's a key date when it comes to salaries.
Correct.
Tomorrow's June 1st.
Yes.
And the way it works is once a player gets to June 1st, after June 1st, if that player is somehow released or retires or something like that, then once you reach that date because of a salary cap thing, now the teams have the option to do this. They don't have to do this, but the teams have the option of future years, not all counting on the salary cap this year. Right now, like if the players were to cut a player right now that had 3 years left on their contract, if they cut them today on May 31st and they weren't a post-June cut, now you can designate some stuff as post-June cuts, and that's a whole different story. Or at least that it used to be how they could do stuff. But if you designate it, if you cut them before June 1st, then all of their contract, all the dead money of their contract goes for 2022. If you do it after June 1st, only the dead money that would have been in 2022 is on 2022. And teams have the option of future dead money going from any additional years beyond 2022 goes on 2023 salary cap. So the dead money is going to show up eventually. It is. But you have an option to spread that out. That's what the Saints did last year with Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he took a big cut in what his salary was, but he didn't retire until after June 1st because they wanted to take the dead money from his salary cap or from his salary and help push some of it into the next year. That's to spread it out. So it didn't hurt them last year with the reduced cap. That's still one of these things that's happened. Now, I don't know that would have anything to do with Stephon Tuitt. For some reason, it's in the back of my head. I mean, if he decided he wasn't playing anymore and he wanted to wait till June 1st to do it, to announce it, that would be one thing. I hope that's not the case. I really do. But somewhere in the back of my head, and it's not like the Steelers had the option to designate when I'm pretty sure that when Antonio Brown was traded, Mr. Third and Fifth was traded, that they had the option to designate him a post-June 1st trade where they could have pushed some of his dead money into the future years. But the Steelers decided to take it all on in 1 year and be done with it. So I don't know that they even would, but that's just one of those things to think about. So it is a key date, whether it has anything to do with Stephon Tuitt or not. That is a key date for most other NFL teams. It's an important date. The Steelers don't always take advantage of that designation. So, but it is important just for those of you that follow salary cap stuff, whether it's the Steelers or not. So what we're going to get into, and I know we're taking a little bit of time to get there just because it's basically things that are happening with OTAs.
Time to get anywhere.
Yeah, I know, but we wanted to talk about Deontay Johnson a little bit, and then, of course, Stephon Tuitt comes up. But the title of the show, which was, in case you can't tell if you've looked at the title of the show, that this is one where I told Brian Anthony Davis what I was thinking about, and he comes up with the title. You can tell this is a bad title, like a Brian Anthony Davis title, and it might be a bad title as well.
It might be a bad
but because someone mentioned it before we even came live. Do the Steelers remain the culture club in the NFL? Now, first of all, because they were saying the reference to the whole to the music group Culture Club. I do have to ask you this one question before we go on. What's the signature song? When you hear Culture Club, what's the song? You've got two options. Which one's it going to be?
I'm going with "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?"
To me,
the reason I'm going with that,
yes,
the reason I'm going with that one is because it's on the wedding singer.
Because of the wedding singer. Honestly, it was Karma Chameleon. That's what it was. That's really what it was. And then the wedding singer changed that up a little bit. But that's a bad topic. That's a Brian Anthony Davis topic. Yep. But in honor of him picking the title of our show tonight, we at least had to ask the question. But what we ultimately mean is we're talking about Steelers culture. And it's really because of the remarks today from Myles Jack. Now, I did an article on it at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. You can go check it out. It was a clip from the interview. It was Chris Adamski from the Trib shared it, and I transcribed it and did an article about it. And in both what he said to start and when he answered the next question, he brought up the whole idea of culture. And he was talked about how the culture is just different in Pittsburgh. Is that something that you've thought about with the Steelers when it really comes to, the players and everything else? Is that it? I've always felt that the culture in Pittsburgh was important. You feel the same way?
I do.
Yeah. For how long?
What, the culture in Pittsburgh being different?
Yeah.
It's been different since the 70s.
Yeah, as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
Probably as long as you can remember.
Yeah.
We're going to be honoring the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, unfortunately on Christmas Eve at 8:30, but don't get me started there. But it was on to the 23rd of when it occurred. And some people are like, oh, well, that play only means anything to the Steelers. That's true, but some people even downplay it. They're like, "Oh, well, you do." The thing that I thought was interesting when I was looking over that play, not only did that give the Steelers their first ever playoff victory. I mean, think about that. That's when the Steelers had their first ever playoff victory in 1972.
Yep.
Did you realize that was their first ever postseason touchdown?
You know what? I'm not sure that I realized that, but actually now that you bring that up, it makes a lot of sense. Yes.
It was their first ever postseason touchdown was the Immaculate Reception. That's crazy. So it was even more important sometimes than fans even remember. I mean, they had never scored a postseason touchdown, and they had been a team since 1933, and they had never scored a postseason touchdown. And that changed everything with the culture. So what do you think defines Pittsburgh Steelers culture?
Here's kind of how I feel it was defined. You had the 4 Super Bowl teams of the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, the culture is was defined by Dan Rooney at the time, because Dan Rooney built those teams. And then it was the choice of Dan Rooney to have a lot of those players even after they retired, continue to come around and be around the team
Mm-hmm.
so that the newer players could understand what those guys meant, what it meant to be a Steeler, to try to keep that type of winning culture and that drive to, play well and play as a team going.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the winning culture here in a little bit after I kind of go into Myles Jack stuff a little bit, because that's interesting, because there's already people complaining about the Steelers and their playoff wins and everything else, and you're not wrong. You're not, but you also got to look at it from some other perspectives as well. And this was something that I thought was interesting when I went to write the article. I was looking, Myles Jack. I'm thinking about him playing in the playoffs and beating the Steelers and them going to the AFC Championship game and having that game, having control of that game, and letting that team up north be that team up north. They too many times that's happened where teams just. You've got to be that team that can do that, but you've also got to be that team that lets them do it too. And it's like, come on, just they started to play to not lose. They started to play to not lose the game at the end of the third quarter. And when you do that against a franchise like that, guess what you end up doing?
You lose.
You lose. But I'm thinking of Myles Jack. I'm like, oh man, he was part of that Jacksonville team, that came in. I watched him play twice that year. I watched both of those games in the 2017 season, both the regular season and the postseason, and it was disheartening. But I just went to look back, and I'm like, okay, let's see what Myles Jack, he said when he was just asked. He's like, I've been in Jacksonville for 6 years. I didn't know any other organization, didn't understand things were any other way. He's like, coming here, it's just a new culture. So I got to thinking, and he was there 6 years. You know how many different head coaches he had in 6 years?
5.
This would have been the 5th one if you count, although we never played a game for him.
Okay.
And Doug, is it Pedersen because it's a D instead of Peterson? I don't know. He doesn't coach the Steelers, so I don't care. So that was his 5th coach he would have played for this year, but they released him. He had 4. Do you realize out of the 6 years he was in Jacksonville, 2 seasons his head coach didn't even last the whole year? 2 seasons. His head coach didn't last the whole year. He played for more coaches in Jacksonville than what the Pittsburgh Steelers have had since the merger.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I can understand some culture going on there. That's a little bit of a different culture. That's you've got the stability of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The fans a lot of fans appreciate it. Some fans, it doesn't mean anything to them. But for the players, a lot of times that really does mean a lot. So, Myles Jack, he went on, and like I said, I outlined this in the article. He talked about, moving to a new city, and he asked what stood out the most with the Steelers. That was the next question. He's like, and even though he already mentioned the word culture, he says, it's the culture. Okay. That's what people say, but coming from where I came from to come here, you see why this team is successful. You're like, okay. So I'm like, oh, so now he's talking about success. I look back at the Jaguars. Other than that 2017 season, where they went to the AFC Championship game, every year Myles Jack was with that team, other than 2017, they came in last in the AFC South.
Yeah,
they never had more than 6 wins. Actually, other than 2017, you go back to 2011, they haven't had more than 6 wins. So somebody coming from that, now not all teams are like that. But someone coming from that, you could understand why culture is important. To me, that just kind of put it more in perspective. Not just hearing him say it, but actually going back and looking at where Myles Jack's coming from, and now coming from the Steelers, the fact that he was using the word culture over and over again.
Yes. What would be interesting now is to sit and have that same conversation with Myles Jack about halfway through training camp.
Yeah. That's true. How's it different? How are things different?
Yeah.
But remember, he's one of those, oh my goodness, it's going to be like 70 players, like 65 to 70 players on the Steelers that have never been to Latrobe.
Right.
You know, that it's going to be crazy with training camp. And don't get me started with training camp. I got a bit of a rant about that. I got an article first thing in the morning tomorrow ranting about training camp. I mean, my goodness, we know what time the Steelers kick off on New Year's Day, and we don't know when they're reporting to training camp. Come on, get it together. So, but come training camp, that's a good point to see how. So, but he's only been here a week of OTAs, with everyone, and he's already talking about the culture. Is that the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is that their reputation around the NFL? And is it important to have that?
You can tell a lot by an organization. You can get a feeling for what's going on. I would imagine a player would tell you that just by being around the complex. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that because back in 2005,
okay,
spring of 2005, I got to tour the Titans complex,
okay,
both the stadium, their practice facility. I mean, got to go into meeting rooms and saw where players had, positional meetings and, spent the day with the offensive line coach at the time. And, you got to think back to the time of where the Titans were then.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're over in the practice facility, you even see a few guys that are in there lifting, during the spring, during the off season. It was right before. So like a week or two before OTAs.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, you had a feel for the organization and what was going on and kind of how they operated just by being in that complex and seeing how the people in the complex, not just players, but everything from administrative assistants to everybody around, just how they were going about their day and what they were doing, what they were seeing for their business. And I would imagine that being around the Steelers, you pick up on those things and just like, whoa, this is a different feel. This is a different, this is organization is definitely different. Myles Jack is probably thinking this organization is done very differently from the previous organization I was in. Yeah. And that in itself, then in the conversation, is going to come out as it's a different culture.
Yeah. Now, here's another question. The culture can change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the enduring culture right now. Some people still, like I said, they're going to say their culture's not the same because they don't win playoff games. We'll talk about the winning in just a little bit. But just the overall culture, I would say the Pittsburgh Steelers are the example of the longevity, because of course there's a culture with some other franchises that where they are, but they go through cycles. They really do go through a bit more cycles with things. I mean, a lot of that has to do with the head coach. The Steelers having 3 head coaches since 1969, that really plays into that. And the same ownership, the same people, the same family doing things for all that time. But the culture can shift. Do you think the Steelers are at a crossroads? I mean, you still got Mike Tomlin, but when you look at it, you're now into the 3rd generation of the Rooneys. Mr. Rooney, as he's referred to, the late Mr. Dan Rooney, who has passed on. Art II's the man now. You've got Kevin Colbert, who was there since 2000. Now he's retiring. Still don't know if he's going to have any kind of small role with things. The franchise quarterback is retired. Do you think Mike Tomlin is the guy to keep the culture going?
He is a major cog in keeping the culture going. He
Yeah.
is not the only thing that's there. Okay. what I saw during the draft party is what keeps the culture going.
Mm-hmm.
All different generations of Steelers from
Mm-hmm.
current to what I'll call recently
Yeah. Recently departed.
to further
Historic.
back
Yeah.
to historic,
Yeah.
being around, being involved in the franchise. That also is a major cog in keeping the culture going. Now, what you'll see with that culture is you're going to see it. I mean, you think about it, it's not exactly the same now as it would have been back in, just in the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, part of that is because culture overall has changed.
Yeah.
So it's going to have some evolution to it. It's not going to be exactly the same, but there's enough identifiable pieces to it that you could say it hasn't changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as you got guys like Joe Green and Mel Blount and Donnie Shell, well, not Donnie Shell, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you've got guys from back there that are around, from those great 70s teams, pieces of that is going
Lynn Swan, John Stallworth. Yeah.
You know, then you move forward to there. I mean, you still got guys. You know, you can go to what some people call some of that forgotten era of Steelers, and there's still guys in there that are involved and talk. And I think of Merrill Hodge.
Yeah.
I think of the now late Tunch Ilkin.
Yeah.
Craig Wolfley, is still in Pittsburgh and calling games. Charlie Batch is still here.
Yeah.
And
plugged in
things
with the
going
team.
on. As long as you have those types of things going on, I don't see that culture ever totally shifting and going away. It will evolve. But as long as those types of things keep happening, it never totally changes.
Yeah,
in a different direction.
And you're exactly right, because one other point I was going to make before I kind of get off on another little tangent with the winning, and it is look at how many players that were Steelers and played somewhere else, but who do they ultimately identify with as their culture? It's the Steelers. Look at the late Kevin Green.
Yes.
No, started somewhere else, finished somewhere else. But where did he want where did he want to do his Hall of Fame celebration? In Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Okay. Look at Santonio Holmes, who went on, to the Jets, everything, where he's still announcing draft picks for the Steelers. Does a lot of stuff with the Steelers. Look at Mr. Third and Fifth saying that he ultimately wants to retire a Steeler, because he knows that's where he was his greatest and everything. So that speaks to the culture that the team that they have in that locker room and what it means to be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with that, now let's go back to the winning. Okay. And I know some people were like, the winning isn't enough. The winning isn't enough because they haven't done anything in the playoffs for a very long time. And you can't deny it. You can't deny how long it's been 2016 since they've won anything in the postseason. If you go all the way back to their last Super Bowl trip, it's only been, I think, three postseason wins. And that's not typical of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But in that time, how many times did they say, how many total games did Ben Roethlisberger play in where the team wasn't in playoff contention in his entire career?
Oh, I don't remember.
It was insane. I was thinking the number was 3, that they were always right there in it to the end where they were. It was very rare that you got to the end of the season and you weren't playing for something. And something was brought up in a different article that I had today in the comments, and it made me say something about it. And it's kind of this fans' expectations that the fans have about the Steelers. And there's a lot of fans that every year it is Super Bowl or bust. Absolutely. But we also understand how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And there was someone that made the comment that said, I believe that the Steelers should win the Super Bowl every year. And I'm like, I think one word with the change of one sound of one word really defines the difference between the super high expectations fans and everything else is disappointed, and the optimistic fans that that are hoping for the best. And that's the difference between the word should versus could. Do you feel that the Steelers should win the Super Bowl every year? Or do you feel that the Steelers could win the Super Bowl every year? And honestly, that got me back to thinking about the culture. So you're talking about the culture, and you're going to name a time where some people feel now or whatever. When do you feel that the Pittsburgh Steelers couldn't win the Super Bowl in the summer before the season gets going? When do you really feel? Now, there's some people that are just down and they're like, oh, I know last year there was no chance that they could win the Super Bowl. And maybe you were right. But I mean, my goodness, that team figured out a way to make the postseason. And if the offense could have done anything, the defense kept the Chiefs off the scoreboard for 5 straight drives, which hadn't happened all season.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't bring it all together. And to me, I'm a could person. I'm could. The Steelers could win the Super Bowl every year because you feel like you've got enough in place. You feel like you have the right culture for winning. That if the team, even if you don't have to go 14-3 and be the number 1 seed. The Pittsburgh Steelers showed what it took in 2005.
That's right. You can be, what were they that year? I'm pretty
sure they were 10-6. They were 10-6. I think they were 10-6.
I don't know. They're the 6th seed,
Yeah.
Speaking of the playoffs, go on the run, win the Super Bowl.
But you got everything put together at the right time. I mean, look at 2020. The Steelers won their first 11 games. And the whole time it kept going, I'm like, I don't want them to win their first 11. I want them to win their last 11.
Yeah.
Having it there's a difference in, it's not just what your record, it's also when you win your games and how you win your games and how you go into the postseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers completely limped into that postseason. They played one good half in the second half against the Colts in order to make it in. And I did not have much confidence with them going in because they weren't playing their best football going into the postseason. And that's what you need to do. But with this team and with that culture, I feel like it's possible for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get in the dance. And if they're peaking at the right time, that they're that team that could make that run every year. Am I crazy?
No, and part of that culture can even revolve around the fact of that team in 2005 that made it in as the last seed in the playoffs and rolled through. That anytime the Steelers get in, it's like, hey, the organization, we've been here before. We got in the dance. We know we can go to the end because we've done it before. Yeah.
Bottom line is you need a ticket. You got to have a seat at the table. You need to be in the room where it happens. However you want to say it. Look, last year, what were the seeds of the 2 teams that made it to the Super Bowl? They came in at the same seed at each conference. They were the 4 seed. It was the 4 seed from the NFC, the 4 seed from the AFC. I think so. I might be off a seed there. Maybe the Rams are the 3 seed, but I know the Bengals were the 4 seed. I mean, it's not like they were the team that tore it up the most throughout the season. They just happened to be playing well going into the postseason. Yeah. And anyone can do it. And that's why I feel like, hey, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've got a good enough defense right now that even if the offense doesn't have it figured out, if they can get it figured out at the right time, you never know. And I'm simply like, oh, there's no chance. I don't have Super Bowl expectations this year. But if this team at any time, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, you feel like if they can get it figured out at the right time, you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, if everything started clicking on both sides of the ball well in game, 13, 14, and your record's close and you win those last few and you're in the playoffs then and everything's clicking full cylinder, boom, Yeah.
But that's the culture that sets that up. Don't you think so?
That's the culture that sets that up because I can tell you a team that wouldn't feel that going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll just pick one.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions.
The Detroit Lions, I think they've got to. I like their head coach. I'd like to see which way they're going. But the Detroit Lions, they're not a team that feels that way. I mean, look, until last year, you would say the same thing about the Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Yes.
You still continue to say things about the Cleveland Browns. They win a playoff game against the Steelers, blah, and it's like their closest thing they've ever been to a Super Bowl. That's the difference of the Pittsburgh Steelers culture. So it's hard to get to the postseason. It's easier now because they take more teams, but it's hard to win in the postseason, and it's hard to put together that many wins in the postseason. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have not been set up to where they have been improving at the right point of the season. I mean, 2017 seemed to be their year. Didn't you think so? And then Ryan Shazier got hurt.
Yes.
And it's changed everything, not just their play on the field. It just loomed over everything, in my opinion. And the thing is, they still could have pulled it together and almost had a shot to win that game as bad as they played against Jacksonville. And then you never know what happens. But it just goes to show how delicate it is. Go ahead. Sorry. I kind of cut you off there. I thought you were going to say something.
Nope.
Oh, okay. So, but that's, to me, that culture is what also creates the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, that some of them there in the live chat that, they're not winning in the postseason. That's not good enough. You know why you feel that way?
Because the Steelers usually win in the postseason.
Because of the Pittsburgh Steelers culture that they've created. That's why. So it's not a bad thing. The Steelers need to continue with that culture. But then it does come with a lot of high expectations. Another thing that Myles Jack mentioned is that I'm going to read what he said. He said, the mission is clear. There's no secrets. If there's a problem, it gets addressed right then and there. And I feel like that's the only way you have to win, is everybody being held accountable. So he's enjoyed it so far. It's been great. That's what he said. When there's a problem, you take care of it. You don't just let it go. There's a culture of that. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's the expectation. You have to do the little things. You don't let little things go by without correcting them, because then they could become big things. And that's the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right. It's crazy.
Right. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, everybody has their job.
Yeah.
Okay. And I mean, gee whiz, ready for me to sound like Coach Tomlin? Everybody has their job, from the head coach to the coordinators to the players, to the starting players, to the bench players, to the special teams players, to the towel boy, to the get back guy, to
you gotta love the get back guy.
Everybody has their job.
Yeah.
And what they're expected to do. And in the Steelers organization, they make it very, here's your job, do it. That's it. In some ways you think about it, it's simple. You know your job, do your job. And when everybody does their job, things go well.
Yeah.
So do your job. Dave, do your job.
Do my job. And my job is to move on to the big question.
To make me look good.
To make you look good. So we're going to do we're going to do our final question a little bit different tonight. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you all first. I'm going to ask the question to the live chat first. I'm going to read your answers, but you're going to have specific rules. You're going to once again have specific rules. Okay. And then we're going to use your answers to come up with our answers. So here's the question that I'm going to raise. Wait for me to type it in. I'm going to try to type it. Okay. Hold on. I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. It's not coming out very good.
You can't multitask.
For
everybody out there listening, let me tell you, you hear this.
I can multitask. No, I can multitask. I can't type and multitask. Yeah.
You hear the phrase that goes on, that person can't walk and chew gum. That was made because of Dave. No. I can multitask plenty of things, but typing is not one of them.
I can. Oh, Jeff Hartman is amazing. You should see this guy type while he's doing other things, and that's why he can tweet so much during the games. And I'm watching him tweet. I'm like, if I'm going to tweet during the games, I'm voice texting onto my phone. I'm not sitting there. Jeff is sitting there like crazy on his keyboard, and I'm like, I can't be looking at something else and thinking about that while I'm typing. I have to focus on what I'm doing there. So I'm not a good multitasker there. So people are waiting for this question. This is the question. One word answer. One word. I guess if it's a hyphenated word, that counts as one word in your word count. I will say that. But if you do anything more than one, I'm not going to bring it up.
Stuff with hyphens in between and expect us to count.
Yes, like because remember, hyphens are acceptable if they're adjectives linked together to a noun. But if you leave out the noun, they're not hyphenated.
All right, come on.
Hey, sorry, I teach middle school grammar. I got to throw it out there. But I want one word for you to describe the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise. Sum up the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise in one word. That's the task I'm giving to you all. I've already entered it in there. So when you think of that one word, go with it. If you type more than one, I'm not going to bring it up. But so now I know people, usually they get our answers while they're thinking of it. But I got it out there. So we're going to see what you all say. And then we're going to look at your answers.
They get the answer before we do, and it's going to be crickets.
It's going to be crickets.
Yeah,
because they want to. For once, we're going to steal your answers rather than you all get to steal ours. So, yeah, here they come. Oh, look at this. State of the Steelers, pristine. I like that one. Okay, it doesn't have. It could be an adjective, could be a noun, could be a gerund, it could be a participle. I'm okay with all of those things. Sorry. Steeler Chick 46 says excellence. Doc Holliday, legendary. Recco, not Rico, right? Recco Parson, legacy. Okay. BF Bud, classy. When you hear classy, what do you think of?
I think of classy Freddie Blassie myself.
Oh, sorry. I think of
back to my 80s reference.
Stay classy, San Diego. Sorry.
I go back to the 80s wrestling. So.
Yeah, Jeff's been on a Anchorman GIF, however you say it, for his ride or die mailbag. So I had to just throw that out there. Oh yeah, here's a good one. Jay Hanna, epic. Okay, I'm going to bring them up even if they're repeats. Bart Mackey says legendary. Darkstorm 1, competitive. Okay. George Rice, legacy. Claude Bishop, loyalty. Brian Blackstock, benchmark. Ooh. Kathy Foreign, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
What's sad is I actually think she totally got the spelling correct.
That's I have to, Kathy, you have to confess to us. Did you Google that and cut and paste it, or did you actually type it out? That's what I want to know. Okay. Charlie Sheen says, oh no, sorry, that's Tyler W. that says winning. Sorry. Occam's Ox says life. Okay. Steelers Pittsburgh says tough. Jerry Cherry Band. Standard. Interesting. Okay. And interesting is not my word. Sorry. That's just that's my description of your guys' answers. Okay. Terry Bradford says classy. George Teston says family oriented. See, used it as an adjective. Very good. Steelers Freak says hungry. Hungry. And Kathy says she spelled it out. It was probably wrong. It looked good to me.
Looked pretty good.
Hungry. Interesting. It's funny because I know Steelers Freak, he's one of those that's very, very critical of the Steelers playoff record. Yeah, playoff over the years. And rightfully so. You can't deny the numbers. So that's funny that he says hungry, because usually I think of a hungry team, they're just going to get there and come through. I hope hungry is what they are this year. That would be, things are different. That would be a good one. Okay. Here we go. Bernardo Vasquez, Lombardi. There you go. Reginald Rivers, best franchise. That's kind of cheating, but you put the hyphen in there. So I kudos to you, Reginald, for squeaking that in there. So, Rich, that's the answers that we have so far. Okay. Okay, and Steelers Freak even explained he's hungry for a ring. That's what you got to be, hungry for a ring. What we've had a lot of ones out there. This is like, you ever watch Match Game? You can take one of the other three answers, or you can come up with one on your own.
Yes.
What's your one word to describe the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise?
I'm going to go ahead and go with the word that came up for me before we even started going through everybody else's. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Family.
There you go. Hey, that's what I have. My shirt, family, Pittsburgh Steelers. Actually, it doesn't say Pittsburgh Steelers. It says Pittsburgh football and says Steelers on the logo. So yeah, that's a good one. I'm going way outside the box. Way outside. I'm going to go technically a hyphenated number. Oh, I said number because I'm going to say a number. 72. Sorry, I said 72. That was the first number. 75. Oh, Jerry Cherrybrand says tradition. Okay. In other words, I was going to say green. Okay. Because to me, the only reason I'm thinking about this to sum up the Steelers franchise is because, last week it was breaking during our show. We didn't know if it was legitimate breaking or not to really discuss it because of everything, because the hire of Omar Khan as the Steelers GM. But what did he say? The number one thing that he was told to do the job: when Joe Green speaks, you listen.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of trying to do a little shout out to one. I had to go with his original, because it was 72, right, before 75. So did just kind of be a little bit, try to be a little bit funny there. So
no.
No, that's one word to sum up behind the steel curtain.
Yes.
If you want one word to sum up behind the steel curtain, there you go. That's what you had. For those of you that are listening in podcast form, it was Beehive. So I would say, honestly, I when I said that, I was just trying to be cute. But really, if I had to pick a real word, I would go tradition. Yeah, I would go with that one.
And I feel when I go with family, it's the tradition falls into that. You think about the fact that the Steelers franchise has been in the Rooney family from the beginning.
Yeah, and when I say tradition, family falls into that.
And when you think about, I think about family because I think about how the Rooneys really treated their players as family, especially Dan Rooney. You know, I mean, to the point where Ike Taylor was a pallbearer at his funeral, you know. And you hear a lot of former Steelers talk about that you really felt like a family, that you really felt a part of the franchise. And to me, that's what family's all about. So that's kind of why I went there. But I totally get the idea of tradition and I don't know. It's funny you asked that, and while I'm sitting there waiting for everybody to get started, I started thinking about other franchises and words I'd use to describe them, and some of them I won't go there.
Deflated. So. Sorry. Hey, some people say that when you're talking about culture, those are the two standards in the current NFL. And so I'm like, that's how I'll describe the other one. I'll go deflated. Well, this is an interesting topic, and I just thought I just got to thinking about it so much today with those comments with Myles Jack. But sometimes
for some reason they hit me a little different. They because I don't know, he seemed so genuine in his discussion. It wasn't like you hear players come out and just like they opened up and took this canned answer and put it out there. And although you could think that what Myles Jack was talking about was a canned answer, the way he went into it and talked about it just felt so genuine.
Yes. Yeah. But but honestly,
if you haven't,
it's probably a relief for him that he could feel genuine. And
did you link to the
I put the tweet at the bottom that had the video for everyone to listen to it. So if you didn't catch it, go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Look at the article about Myles Jack. You can see the video of the bomb. Oh, I just want to throw up one more because Donovan, we'll just say Donovan, says bestowed, talking about the franchise. So yeah. just when you think about it and you think about the culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, you could look forward and you could be getting down about, oh man, there's so much change. Oh, there's so much that the Steelers have to pull together. Can they stop the run? Well, how's it going to work out with the cornerbacks they have? Will they have better inside linebacker play with Myles Jack? Will the offensive line come together? Will they be improved? Oh my goodness, the quarterback, who knows about that? How will it be implementing Matt Canada's system with so many different players? Is it going to be better? Or are you going to find that it doesn't work? There's so many questions, but because of that Steelers culture, there's always the hope that those questions, although, the Steelers are never seem to be quite a finished product. Coach Tomlin always says they're not a finished product, even when they're getting late in the season, that they can finish that product and put those things together at the right time, because the whole goal is win enough games along the way to put yourself in position to get on a run and keep carrying it through there. So that's kind of how I feel about the culture. Make sure you are checking out all of our podcasts. They will continue to come through, even though there's this week of OTAs, next week of OTAs, one more week after that, a mandatory mini camp, then the lull. We're still coming at you. You've got the YouTube shows every night except Saturday. So instead you get 2 Friday and 2 Sunday. We have a great rotation of different people coming in to do the Q&A. I'm excited about the next time I do it, which is coming up very soon. Rich is coming up pretty soon. I'm looking forward to when I saw who he's paired with. That looks to be pretty fun. Also, if you're here on YouTube and Facebook Live, make sure you're checking out the audio podcast. So much more coming there. The Let's Ride on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My Stat Geek, it's you either love it or it's not your thing, and I'm okay with that. But we've got the noon lineup, so many good shows, so many different things coming at you. Make sure you're checking out. Make sure you're checking out the website. None of it's going away, even though we are now getting into the dog days of summer where there's just not going to be much going on once we get through mandatory minicamp. So, Rich, what kind of closing thoughts do you have for us tonight?
The last week has really been fun, just catching little clips here and there from OTAs. The part I've really liked the most has been the fact that we've got reporters back in the locker room.
Yeah,
that has been so much fun.
I
liked the one today of Kenny Pickett talking about learning guys' names and Cam Hayward.
Hayward sneaking in.
Oh my gosh, that was so hilarious.
Yeah, and if you want to see all these, go to behindthesteelcurtain.com in the morning, and Jeff Hartman has a OTA recap. He has them all right there for you in one spot.
That's been great. It's been fantastic. It just gets me super excited for football again. So, I'm continuing to look forward to OTAs finishing up, and then, a little time off and into mini camp. Because to me, there can never be enough Steeler football. So
absolutely.
Can't wait.